This is the Comics Alternative, episode 204, a look at the September Previews catalog. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Comics Alternative. I'm Derek.
And I'm Andy, and we're two guys with PhDs talking about comics.
And it's the beginning of the month, which means that it must be time for me and Andy to take a look at the latest Previews catalog. But before we get into that fun discussion, we want to let all of you know that this episode of the Comics Alternative is brought to you by the great folks at Discount Comic Book Service. Go to their website, dcbservice.com, for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. There, you're going to find all DC, Marvel, Image, and Dark Horse titles at 40% off of the cover price if you pre-order. For all of the other publishers, you'll find that those discounts are 20 to 35% off of the cover price. And every single month, you're going to find some wonderful specials. Sometimes those specials will be at 45% off cover price, sometimes at 50% off of the cover, but often you can find discounts that are more impressive than that.
That's right, and this month, as in every month, they have a load of bundles you can take advantage of where you can get a deeper discount on multiple comics from the same publisher than you would get if you bought those comics individually. And this month there's a load of bundles at 45 to 50% off, including 10 different bundles from DC Comics. So check those out.
Yeah, you know, you can always find great deals with bundles and also single issues and single texts by going to Discount Comic Book Services website. That's dcbservice.com. You got to go there for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. And after you do get your comics there, please remember to send them an email and tell them that the two guys with PhDs sent you.
That's right. And since we're doing the previews episode tonight, you can guess that a lot of stuff we'll talk about will also be deeply discounted.
Oh, yeah. And in fact, one way of listening to this episode is to pull DCB Service's website up in a browser as you listen to this, and then you can just go through the catalog and check off the things that you may want, maybe going by some suggestions that Andy and I have.
That's a good idea. Maybe I should do that because I very often, when I do my order, forget what we talked about. So yeah, I can go through and listen and remember, oh, yeah, I said I was going to get that.
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the things I actually do is to go back to the show notes for that preview episode to see if there's anything that I've forgotten. Because what I've been doing for the past, I guess, about a year is listing in bulleted form most, not all of the titles that we highlight on a particular episode.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there is a lot that we want to discuss in the September catalog. So do you want to go ahead and jump into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so we start at the beginning with the Dark Horse section, and where do you begin in Dark Horse?
Let's see. I begin on page 47 with a new series called Ether, which I had been hoping was going to be the comic book adaptation of Nas's beef track about Jay-Z. And it's not, apparently. But it is a new series by Matt Kindt with art by David Rabin. It's a 5-issue miniseries. We talk about Matt Kindt all the time, and David Rabin drew the Aurora West graphic novel for with Paul Pope, and so this is a nice team up. I think Rabin's art will complement Matt Kindt's imagination really well.
Yeah, you're right. I'm looking forward to this, and Edward and I were just talking about some of Rabin's comics on this month's Eurocomics episode that we recorded a couple of days ago. So by the time that this preview show goes up, the Eurocomics episode will have already become available. So our listeners may recall what we said about Rubin's work. But yeah, I love his art, and of course, we absolutely love Matt Kent's writing. So I'm definitely on board for this one.
Yeah.
And we have 2 pages of sample art because the solicit's on page 47, so on 48 and 49 we have some good sampling. Great stuff.
Yeah, and it looks to me like Rubin's art is a little different from what he does on the Aurora West book. Like for that, he's maybe mimicking Paul Pope's style a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And here he seems to have a simpler style in this.
Yeah, it's a little looser. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, if we turn the page to 50, speaking of Matt Kent, we have the first collected volume of his Department H, Department H Volume 1, Pressure. Now, the thing that's notable about this collection is it's going to be very much like Mind Management in that the collections are going to be hardbound. Okay,
yeah. And I like those Mind Management collections. Mm-hmm. And that hardcover, I've got those, and except for the one that my cat chewed. I'm really disappointed about that.
Which volume was it?
I think it's Volume 1.
Oh. Well, maybe you can pick that one up at a really good used price.
Well, I don't know, so Matt Kent set one of my books on fire, mm-hmm. And then my cat chewed another, so my Matt Kent collection is clearly not near mint anymore.
That's right, but at least he burned your copy of Red Handed intentionally. Right. So maybe what you can do next time you go to a con that you know he's going to attend is to take your cat and see if he does anything with your cat.
I hope no. I would hate that.
Not necessarily burn, but maybe use the cat to chew up other people's comics.
The cat's sitting right here. He heard all that.
Okay. Am I getting cat stink eye?
You're gonna stink something.
Okay. But getting back to the hardcover of Mind Management, if those are really nice, and if the quality of the new Department H collections are anything like that, then definitely something worth looking into and getting.
Yeah,
unlike you, I have all the hard copies of Mind Management.
Yeah, and they're reasonably priced at $20 a piece for the 6 issues. That's good. Most hardcovers about that size would run $25 or $30. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that Kent does something to keep those prices down. And then it's 50% off at DCV service, so you get it for $9.99. So there's no excuse not to get that. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And on that facing page on 51 is yet another Neil Gaiman book, and we've commented for the past several months on the prevalence of Neil Gaiman in these preview issues. This is a comics adaptation of his story Forbidden Brides of the Faceless Slaves in the Secret House of the Night of the Dread Desire. And so he does the writing, Shane Oakley does the art. Yeah, I'm not clear on this from the solicit. Is this a pre-existing story of Gaiman's that's being adapted by Gaiman and Oakley? Yeah, that's what I gathered, and I think I looked this up a bit. So it's a story of his. I don't know from what collection or what book. So maybe our listeners who are Neil Gaiman fans can fill us in on this. But they've done this a number of times with other prose from Gaiman. Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the last few months, as we've mentioned. Yeah. So if you're a Gaiman fan and you love Gaiman in comics, then here's another text for you to get. Yep. And unless I'm missing something, I think that's all I have in Dark Horse. Do you have other things? That's it for me. I just go to DC. Yeah, and that's a little unusual because more times than not, we have quite a number of things in the Dark Horse section. Yeah, well, I have enough to cover myself later on. Yeah. And I just, in DC, I go to page 78, and I just mentioned that we've got another book in the Young Animal line coming out. But this is really the first wholly new character, it looks like, in the line, Mother Panic, written by Jody Houser with art by Tommy Lee Edwards. So Jody Houser, who we most recently talked about, writing Faith for Valiant, and then and Tommy Lee Edwards, who's done some great stuff and has a really nice kind of dark art style. And it looks like also that this one is more clearly set in the DC universe than the solicits for others have seemed to indicate, in that the character Mother Panic operates in Gotham City, and we see the bat signal on the cover and so on.
Yeah. So in that way, it's quite different from the other, 3 Young Animal solicits that we've had so far.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, I'm interested in this as well. I think that either late this year or maybe early into 2017, you and I ought to do a publisher spotlight on DC's Young Animal titles. Yeah.
When I think by the time those 4 titles come out, we can have a good look at that.
Mm-hmm. And who knows how many more will come out in the months to come.
Yep.
I don't have anything in DC proper, but I do go to Vertigo. Do you have anything else in DC?
I just want to make a quick stop at page 114 because that lists this Catwoman Election Night special. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I find really odd about this special is that it contains a short, I think it's about 10 or 12 page backup story that is going to conclude the recent Prez series. Now, I don't know if you read Prez.
Not the new series, but didn't it end abruptly?
Yeah, by Mark Russell and Ben Caldwell. Well, it was supposed to be a 12-issue miniseries from the beginning, and there were pretty clear promises from DC. Dan Didio came out and said, no, it's going 12 issues. We're committed to this. But there was going to be a break between issues 6 and 7, and the first 6 issues came out, the first trade came out, and now apparently the series is going to be wrapped up in this short story in the back of a Catwoman comic. So anyway, I really liked that Prez series a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun. I think it probably should have been either a Vertigo book or maybe hung on to it. I mean, they probably didn't know Young Animals was on the way when it started, but it would have been a good Young Animals book as well. Mm-hmm. It didn't fit in the DC universe at all, so they could have done something else with it. And so it's unfortunate, but you can get that first trade, and I'd highly recommend it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about the new Prez, although I haven't read any of the issues. Now, I did read some of the original Prez when it came out in the 70s.
All 4? Did you read all 4 issues? Because there's only 4 issues.
Yeah. And I can't remember which ones, though, because it was so long ago. But yeah. I do remember getting them because they were on my news rack.
Yeah, I have all 4 of those because I like collecting those DC series that didn't last very long in the 70s. But also, Ed Brubaker wrote a Prez special for Vertigo many years ago when Vertigo was doing those little one-shots with characters like that and Brother Power the Geek.
Yeah, and that wasn't that collected in the recent trade of Prez from DC that came out, I don't know, maybe a month or 2 ago?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. That had the original series because, otherwise it would have been about an 80-page book. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you have anything in particular in Vertigo?
No, I don't.
Okay, because we don't have any new titles or new series in Vertigo, but one thing that's worth mentioning is on page 143, and it's interesting, and I'll tell you why I find this interesting. This is Jack of Fables, the Deluxe Edition, Book 1. And I've talked often about how much I love Vertigo's deluxe editions. They're nice hardcover editions at a good price. And I've been getting all of the Fables. Just the other day, before I got my copy of Previews, for some reason I was thinking of Fables as I was jogging. Don't ask me why. But I wondered, how long will it be until they come out with a deluxe edition of the Jack of Fables series? Mm-hmm. and then about a day or two later I get previews. Lo and behold, guess what I see on page 143? Jack of Fables, the Deluxe Edition, Book 1.
Yep. Yeah, I have all the trades, so I'm not going to get that. But it looks like that has issues 1 through 16, so it looks like there probably was going to be 3 of those.
Probably. See, yeah, I'm and we've talked about this before. I'm going to do with Jack of Fables, or my experience with Jack of Fables is similar to my experience with Fables, because with Fables, I never got any of the trades. I got the individual issues and then waited for the deluxe editions. And I never got any of the Jack of Fable trades because I got the single issues, but now I'm probably going to get the books.
Okay.
And I really liked Jack of Fables, at least maybe the first 2/3 of that run. The last third or the last quarter of that series, it seemed to just go into unusual directions, which is saying a lot for Jack of Fables, because I think it started out really weird and unusual. And it took what Willingham had been doing with Fables and ramped it up quite a bit, especially the self-reflexive metafictional aspect of it, aware of itself as making commentary on storytelling and fables, fairy tales, and whatnot. And I really like that. The last trade or two of Jack, I don't know. Maybe I had just grown apart from it by that point, but it just didn't hit me at the same way that the earlier part of the series did.
No, I felt the same way. I didn't care for the last about 18 issues or so. For me, Fables in general took a turning point around the time of the what the literals.
Yeah,
stopped at the big crossover. I didn't care for that storyline at all. So when I got kind of cool to Fables, and I think I was still, even in general, and I was still getting the trades but not reading them. So, but when we did our overall coverage of it, when Fables ended, I went back and reread it, or read it for the first time.
Has it been a year since Fables ended?
I don't know.
Wow. Time do fly. But that's all that I have highlighted in Vertigo.
Yeah, and I go a ways into IDW before I have anything. So
okay, so yeah, I don't have anything until page 171.
Yeah, that's where I go too. Now, this looks to me, and it isn't very clearly stated on this, that so we've got Comic Book History of Comics by Fred Van Lente and Ryan Dunleavy. 1 of 6. And this looks like it's just a reprint of the previous series, but this time in color. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, with the addition of some new material.
Okay.
At least that's what I got from the solicit. It says, where did I read this? I guess it's somewhere in the solicit that there may be some new strips in there.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, it says, feature and variant covers and all new historically inspired comic strips. So I guess this is going to be the original in color plus a little more.
Okay.
Yeah. Which, okay, I guess there's a place for this. This is by far not the only incident recently of a comic that is being re-released in a different format in some way or another.
Right, and that IDW is doing too.
Right, exactly. But I really did enjoy Comic Book History of Comics. We've talked about it on the show before. In fact, we even talked with Fred Van Lente about that when we had him on the show a few years ago.
Yep.
In fact, Fred Van Lente is the only creator we've ever interviewed on the Comics Alternative who was cooking his dinner as he spoke with us.
That we know of.
That we know of.
The only one who admitted to it.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, and so, I might get, I have the collection of the original series, so I don't know if I need it in color unless there's really significantly new material in it, to get.
Yeah. With the new material, that would be good. I don't know, though, if I'm going to get the individual issues or just wait until everything's completed and then see how much new material is in there and then see if it's worth getting the trade.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, that I'm probably going to wait to see on that, too.
Yep. So where do you go next in IDW?
I go to page 180, so if you have anything before then, go ahead.
Yeah, on page 174, and this is in the top shelf section, we have Tanoharu Part 3. This is written and illustrated by Lars Martinson. And actually, you and I were talking earlier this week that we had both gotten review copies of this book. Now, I'm aware of Tanoharu, but I have not read the first 2 volumes. But I've been wanting to for a while because I've heard good things about this. But I guess this is the one. I guess it wraps it up, the story. So, and it's coming out from Top Shelf, which did not publish, I don't think, the first 2 Tanoharu books.
Yeah, so, I received that. I'd be curious to know how the first 2 are, if I could get a hold of those.
Yeah. And then on the facing page on 175, this is something that caught my attention. Issue number 1 of 4, Yakuza Demon Killers. This is written by Amit Kauhan with art by Ellie Powell. It says, Tokyo harbors a dark secret. When a museum heist goes wrong, a damaged thief named Ochida becomes trapped in the middle battle between a horde of demons and the merciless Yakuza. No matter who wins, humanity loses. Yep. It looks fun.
Okay.
So you say you go to page, 180?
Yeah.
Okay. I think, there's 1 or 2 possibilities there that I would guess you're highlighting.
Well, probably both, but the first one is The Theory of the Grain of Sand by Benoit Peters and Francois Schuiten. Now this is the second volume in the Obscure Cities series following The Leaning Girl, and we talked about The Leaning Girl when that came out most recently from Alaxis Press. So it looks like Alaxis is now teamed up with IDW to put this out this series. So I'm looking forward to that.
Same here. You know, the teaming of Alaxis and IDW both does and doesn't surprise me. It does surprise me in that I didn't know about this before I saw the solicit. So I just, if there was any news of this, I didn't pay attention to it. What doesn't surprise me is that this seems to be what IDW has been doing, especially lately. We saw this a couple of years ago with Top Shelf, even before that with something like Yo Books. And so, in other words, IDW is working in conjunction with other publishers because of their much stronger distribution arm.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because that Leaning Girl book did feel like it was a kind of boutique press book.
Yes.
And so I would like to, I mean, I hope this one's in the same format. It looks like it with the size that it's listed at. So I'll be interested in keeping up with that series because I really did like the first one.
Yeah, although it does surprise me that we're not seeing this as part of the Eurocomic series.
Right. And then that's right next to Saxon Violins by Peter David and George Perez. Now, did you read this when it originally came out?
No, I didn't.
So this looks like it's part of. Now I'm forgetting the editor's name, but the move of the editor from Dover Press to IDW.
Oh yes, another acquisition of IDW.
Right. To release creator-owned works that have languished for a while, that haven't been in print. And Saxon Violins, if I remember right, was originally a part of Marvel's Heavy Hitters line, which was a short-lived line of comics that were creator-owned and featured some big creators. This was one of the more high-profile books, along with, I think there was a Howard Chaykin book, Mystery Men. I think that's the right name. That was pretty good too. those are the only ones I remember from that line.
Well, more good stuff from IDW.
Yep. And that's all I have in IDW.
Okay, because I have at least one more, and this is on page 188, and it's from the aforementioned Yo Books, and this is, I think it's the third, isn't it, volume of the Weird Love series, and this one is titled Jailbird Romance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we love Craig Yo, we love Yo Books, and we love Weird Love on the Comics Alternative. Take that as you will.
And it seems like a light month for Yo Books. If it's just weird, just the Weird Love and the Popeye.
Yeah, well, there's Weird Love number 15, and then there's this next volume of Weird Love, Jailbird Romance, and then you write the Popeye stuff. So yeah, sometimes there are months where we're inundated with Yo.
Yep.
You can't say no to Yo.
And Craig needs a little rest. Like, exactly. He's been working hard on that Weird Superheroes book. So
right, I'm sure that took a lot out of him, and also he needs to rest up because there's going to be a lot to talk about, and he's going to be on the show when that comes out.
Yep. And I helped him out with some research on that, so I was happy to have that opportunity. Yeah,
on that Weird Superhero book.
Yeah. Good.
Does he acknowledge you?
I don't know. I hope so, if he's listening. It's out there now. I would trust him. Yeah, so then I just go to Image, which has a whole bunch of stuff to talk about in Image.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes, and lately I felt that with as many number ones as Image has every month, we just aren't highlighting as many as we used to, because like one or two will stand out, but the rest of them we could take or leave, and they may be good titles, they just don't interest us. But I got the sense in this month's catalog that you and I would be talking much more about new series and new titles from Image.
Yeah, I thought that too. And they start right away on page 194 with a book that's been announced for a while, AD After Death, written by Scott Snyder and drawn by Jeff Lemire. Mm-hmm. And it's a 3-part series with pretty big issues. They're going to be the issues are going to be in that square bound prestige format. First issue is 72 pages, and as the title says, or excuse me, as the description says, set in a future where a genetic cure for death has been found. Years after the discovery, one man starts to question everything, leading him on a mind-bending journey that will bring him face to face with his past and his own mortality. A unique combination of comics, prose, and illustration. So I'm curious to see how that looks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is notable for a number of reasons. One, the creative team there. Scott Snyder by himself and Jeff Lemire by himself are both powerhouses, but you bring them together, and almost anything could be possible. Also, the format that we're getting this. You mentioned the prestige format, so we're getting this. Mm-hmm. This is book 1 of 3, so that makes it notable. I first learned something about this way back a few months ago in that Image Plus supplement. Okay. Back when they were including them in the previews. When you get the regular previews, you would get that. Now that's not the case, but they had some information about it there. So yeah, that was enough to whet some appetite. Now we get even more. Now this is one of the things I do like, the Image Plus supplement. I wish that they included it for free when you get the regular previews, but they don't anymore. But one of the things that does with the regular previews is that the sample pages are much smaller in the regular previews. So, for instance, on page 195, we have of this catalog, we have 4 sample pages from AD After Death, Book 1, but they're all on one page. Now, in the Image Plus supplement, you would get those in much larger quality.
Now, the 4 pages that we do get previews of are in conventional comic book format, so we don't get any preview pages that demonstrate the combination of comics, prose, and illustration that this book is supposed to provide. So I'm curious to see what the rest of the book looks like that's not in traditional comics form.
Right.
Now,
and in fact, the next title we're going to discuss, I don't know if you wanted to use this as a segue, does...
No, I'm not done.
Oh, okay. Okay, go ahead.
Have you ever read a book called The Postmortal by Drew McGarry?
No, I haven't.
Okay, that's a book about what the world would be like if a genetic cure for death appeared. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious to see how Snyder and Lemire handle that plot differently than that book, because I do like that book a lot. In fact, I've taught it. McGarry is a writer normally for Deadspin, doing sports writing, but he happened to have a good post-apocalyptic novel in him, or apocalyptic, I guess, because it takes place during the time when the world goes to hell because people aren't dying anymore. But from the looks of the preview pages, this seems to be going into more of a pretty hard SF direction that the Postmortal doesn't go into.
Now, I know that you're not necessarily a Doctor Who fan, so my guess would be that you're not a Torchwood fan. There's a reason why I'm asking this.
Well, actually, I've watched more Torchwood than I've watched of Doctor Who.
Oh, okay. So you know that they had, and I can't remember the name of that 10-issue or 10-episode arc of Torchwood that dealt with this very subject. What if humans did not die?
Yeah, it's the children of something, or the something children.
I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen it. But yeah, that is an interesting premise, and I liked where Torchwood was going with it. Okay. So there's that. So okay, so now I know that you're much more of a fan of Torchwood than Doctor Who.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so that's one of my takeaways from today's episode.
Yeah. I find what's the actor's name in Torchwood?
Barrowman, John.
Yeah,
Barrowman.
Jeremy. I find him much more interesting and engaging than I find Doctor Who. So,
okay.
Okay. So next we go to Frontier on page 196, which is a new book by Jonathan Hickman, but this time he is both writing and drawing it, which is something he hasn't done since, I think, Pax Romana.
Pax Romana, he did the art and writing for that?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. See, I was going to make that, ill-fated segue to talk about the sample art that we get on page 197. That's probably more of what we were discussing in terms of the art and prose mixture. And we do get some of this with, Hickman's Frontier #1. But then again, given his background in design, this is, the way that the cover looks and the sample pages that we get on 197, this definitely looks like a Jonathan Hickman joint. Yeah, it sure does. And the way the in these I guess they're 4 sample pages, but two page spreads are arranged. The relationship of image and text is going to be interesting. Yeah. Now, this is also a double-sized first issue, and we have, 56 pages. And we were talking just last week about Black Monday Murders #1 being double-sized. I actually seem more like triple-sized. Yeah. And you had mentioned Hickman's propensity for taking as much space as he needs and not being tied down to a particular length per issue based on a particular schedule. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess we'll have I wonder if we'll have the same thing with this, if this is going to be a monthly or semi-monthly. Well, again, or whenever it comes out. I've heard from several people now that that Image is really cracking down on late books.
And so they're not letting anybody solicit a book until it has 3 issues in the can.
Right, but he can already have 3, 4, or 5 issues in the can, but he may not release them except maybe every other month.
No, they want them monthly. They want
definitely monthly. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I hope so. Anyway, we'll see. But since Hickman's not doing Marvel work anymore, I think he's freed up some time to be able to draw again, which I think is great.
Yeah, it is good. I'm looking forward to this. Mm-hmm. And then if we turn the page, we have another interesting #1. This is Mayday, #1 of 5, written by Alex DeCampi with art by Tony Parker Blonde.
No, Tony Parker and Blonde.
Blonde, yes. So it seems like an interesting premise. It says Cold War action thriller like no other. It's 1971, and 2 young Soviet operatives are sent to California to kill a defector and recover top-secret information. As the mission falls apart into a mess of good sex, bad drugs, and ugly violence, the young Russians are faced with a dilemma. They need to rely on each other to escape America, but they must betray each other to survive Russia.
Yep. Yeah, that looked interesting, and then again on the next page, Violent Love on page 200 by Frank Barbary and Victor Santos. Mm-hmm. And I'm really interested in this because, not just for I like Frank Barbary as a writer, but Victor Santos's art I find really cool too. And if this is, in the kind of vein of like a 1950s bad kids on the run story, I think that Santos's art fits that really well.
Yeah, I agree. And this is also a 1 of 5. In a first issue in a 5-issue miniseries. We both have talked about Frank Barbary's work, a number of his titles in the past. I don't know if we've ever discussed a comic that Victor Santos has been a part of. I don't remember. I know that we've discussed the possibility of talking about a Victor Santos comic, but I don't know if we ever have on the show.
Yeah, no, we haven't, and I know that's right. We have talked about the possibility, but this looks great, and the preview pages look fantastic as well. So,
yeah, and this would be perfect. I don't know if probably won't be out in time, but it would be perfect for our plans for a 2-part crime series.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And this is not a #1 issue, but if we turn the page to 202, this is definitely something worth noting. It is Chew #60, the last issue of the series.
Yep.
And you have, I guess this will be the cover of issue #60, which is a callback to the cover of issue #1. But this is nothing new because they've been calling back the cover of issue #1 several times since the series has been running. But, they had planned on this for a while being a 60-issue series, and here we are now at issue #60.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the longest-running Image titles. Well, you could say right now this is one of the longest-running comics out there, period, regardless of it being Image or not. Obviously The Walking Dead has been around longer. But this is one that I think flies under the radar of a lot of people, because when people think about long-running Image titles, obviously they'll think of Walking Dead. Saga is another one, but I don't know. My sense is that Chew may not come to mind.
Yeah,
but it's a great series, and I'll be sorry to see it go.
Yep.
Do you have anything else in Image?
Yeah, I do. On page 230, I don't know if you have anything before that.
No, in fact, yeah, that's the next place I was going to go.
Okay. I'm scrolling to it, and this is
1 Week in the Library.
1 Week in the Library, which is an original graphic novel It's advanced solicited, so it won't be out till December. And it is by W. Maxwell Prince and John Amore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's... Go ahead.
No, I was going to say this is made up of individual stories.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's described as an experimental graphic novella. A troublesome week in the library through 7 short stories, one for each day, that use comics, infographics, prose, and poetry to play with the graphic medium and explore the multivalent world of living narrative. So that, sounds like Image has several works right now that are in that vein of experimenting with the kind of boundaries of what makes something a comic.
Yeah, I'm sensing a theme for this episode.
Yeah. So I'm curious about that. I'll definitely pick that up in order to see what's going on there.
Yeah, I will as well. And then the only other thing that I would mention in Image is on page 234. I don't know if you had anything before that.
I'm done with Image.
Yeah. And this is Outcast. We have the hard cover edition, so I guess they're doing with this what Image does with some of its other titles, like Walking Dead, where I'm assuming that this book 1 will include the 2 trades.
Yeah.
So if you're an Outcast fan, but you have not gotten the trades and you would like them collected, then this is your opportunity, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And then with that, I guess we finish with Image.
Yep. And then I don't have anything until then we go to the... Are we in the back of the catalog then?
Yes, after we get past the premier publishers.
Yeah, so then I don't have anything until Boom. So
okay. Well, I have something on page 256, and this is a new series from Terry Moore. He wrapped up Rachel Rising not too long ago, and I even had him on the Comics Alternative for an interview about Rachel Rising. But now he has a new series, and this one is called Motor Girl. And this seems to be, in many ways, kind of a typical Terry Moore, at least from the solicit and the Image, that it deals with serious subject matter, but also there's a bit of comedy going on here. And the setup is in the solicit. When Samantha's junkyard is visited by a UFO looking for spare parts, she is only too happy to oblige. But when word gets out she is a reliable source, Sam's booming alien business catches the attention of an Area 51 investigator determined to shut her down. So, if you think that Terry Moore was going to rest on his laurels after finishing Rachel Rising, you would be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm looking forward to this. I'm on board for about anything that Terry Moore does. I love his art, I love his storytelling, and his sense of humor. So, all of it seems to be here.
Yeah, good. Sounds good.
In a couple of pages later on 259, this is in the Action Lab section, and it's not often that we highlight much from Action Lab in our preview shows, but this is one. I guess this is on page 259. I think this is a new Athena Voltaire series, Athena Voltaire and Volcano Goddess #1.
Mm-hmm.
So this is by Steve Bryant. When the compendium, the Athena Voltaire Compendium came out a couple of years ago, I know we had him on the show to talk about that. So he's bringing his title back in a new series.
Yeah, it's a fun adventure series, so I'm glad it's getting to continue.
Mm-hmm. And then, okay, so you don't have anything before Boom.
Right.
Okay, on page 268... Under Alternative Comics, we have Eric Haven's Compulsive Comics. Now, Andy Wolverton and I discussed Compulsive Comics a few months ago when we did our publisher spotlight on Alternative Comics and other publishers within their collective. And this was one that really stood out to us just because of Haven's sense of humor.
Okay.
So that's a good one. But also solicited is something else that you and I have discussed on the show, and that is the most recent issue of King Cat, which is 76.
Yeah, so I'm glad to see that's still continuing to come out from Alternative Comics. So if you're hooked in with John Porcellino, you can get those comics a little earlier. But then if you just want to order them through through Previews, you can get them this way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And then after that, on page 292, there are a couple of things I want to mention. Under Bergen Street Press, we have Copra Round 4 that is being solicited, and you and I discussed Round 1 when it came out a while back. Also on this page, under Big Planet Retrofit, is Summerland by Paloma Dawkins. And we've got our copies of that. That looks really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes.
That's right.
And then Boom. So where in Boom do you go?
I start on page 298.
Okay.
So I'm working my way there right now. This is... Oops, I blew past it. This is Namesake number 1 of 4 by Steve Orlando and illustrated by Jakob Brbelka. And I stopped here because I've liked what Steve Orlando has been doing for DC on the series Midnighter, which unfortunately has been canceled. But he's doing other stuff for them too with Supergirl. And so he's a writer that I'm now curious about to check his stuff. And so this is a 4-issue miniseries. It says, once every 7 years, Earth overlaps with Ekte, a world where alchemy is not pseudoscience, but the driving force of industry. For 7 days, Ekte breaches our world, bringing dirty magic and ideas. So that's the setup. That sounds curious. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah, it does sound interesting. I had wondered about that, but I didn't mark the page for some reason.
And then I went to the next page.
Slam.
Yep.
Okay.
Which is written by Pamela Rybin and drawn by Veronica Fish, who's most recently done Archie with Mark Waid, and this is a comic series about roller derby. And it does seem like roller derby actually comes up a few times in this catalog.
Another thing.
Yeah. So, but that's good. And so, a series that follows the life of roller derby queens sounds great.
Mm-hmm. Now, were you a roller derby fan as a kid?
As a kid, I don't know, but I've been curious about the resurgence. I don't have any local roller derby that I know of that I can go to, unfortunately, so I don't go. But I know people who are really into it.
Yeah. See, I wasn't really into it, but I asked about it as a kid because I remember seeing roller derby on TV growing up.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah. But I would watch it, but not religiously. If it was on and I was flipping channels, I would watch it just because of the action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a fun sport. I don't have anything now until Conundrum, so I got a huge gap in here.
Okay. Well, another thing, before we leave Boom, this is on page 303, and this is something that the first issue of which we discussed several months back, the Baker Street Peculiars, written by Roger Langridge with art by friend of the show, Andy Hirsch. And this is now coming out in a trade paperback. It's an advanced solicit coming out in January, but it is coming out. And this is a really fun series. And, of course, it's got great art. So I'm definitely going to get this one.
Great.
Yeah, and we turn the page, and there are a couple of other trades based on series that we discussed the first issue or two. So this is on 304. There's a solicit, again, advanced solicit, for Kennel Block Blues, written by Ryan Ferrier and art by Daniel Bayliss. And then right beside it is a solicit for the trade of Snowblind by Ollie Masters with art by Tyler Jenkins. Mm-hmm. So it's good to see those titles whose first issue we discussed on past episodes. Things are coming to fruition with the trades.
Yep.
And you say you go next to Conundrum. That's where I go next.
Okay, so that's a long leap, I think, through the catalog here to page, is it 372 or 322?
322.
Oh, whoops, I can't read the difference between my 2s and my 7s and my handwriting. That's terrible. Okay, so it's not as far as I thought it was. Yeah, so there's several things in there. Or two things. Lake Jehovah by Gillian Fleck and The Palace of Champions by Henriette Valium.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me start with The Palace of Champions. Mm-hmm. Were you familiar with the work of Henriette Valium before this?
No.
I wasn't either, and then I read the solicit and thought that I should look him up. It's like, why hadn't I heard of him? And so, yeah, I did a little digging, and this is something that came out a few years ago in French. But I guess this is the first English translation of it. But apparently he was a big French-Canadian underground artist from back in the 80s.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious about it because it says he's been called the greatest French-Canadian cartoonist of all time, and I thought, well, isn't there Julie Doucet? but it looks like maybe she from the looks of just the cover and this artist's style that maybe he influenced her.
Right, but they also describe in the solicit his style as the bastard love child of S. Clay Wilson and Durf Backdurf, as raised by French avant-garde collective Le Dernier Cri. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that, I guess, goes some way of explaining the kind of art here. Mm-hmm. This is something that I would definitely like to discuss on the show. But the other title here, Lake Jehovah, also seems interesting. This is by Gillian Fleck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's about a small town known for its allegedly bottomless lake, and it is there that Jay, a genderqueer individual, experiences a crisis of meaning regarding love in the face of a series of apocalypses. Jay's fiancée leaves him, which causes him to spend the next few months sleeping. When he wakes up, Jay discovers he has become a small-time celebrity for writing an apocalyptic prophecy, and so on. So, that sounds like a very complicated plot. An interesting book. It's a large book. It's about 216 pages, it says. So it's gonna that should be an interesting read.
Right. Yeah, Conundrum, we've said this on the show a number of times before. They do some really good stuff. And I with both of these books that are solicited on page 322, I would either like to review them or maybe even have the creators on for an interview.
Sure.
Yeah. I go to the next page. Or if you turn the page,
okay,
that's where I go next, to 324.
Yeah.
You too?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is under the Dynamite section. This is Grand Passion, issue number 1 of 5, with writing by James Robinson and art by Tom Feister. Mm-hmm. This seems to be a mashup of romance and crime comics.
Yeah, that's what it says. And when I was thinking about this episode, and I wrote down wanting to talk about violent love in the image section, I keep getting that mixed up with this.
With Grand Passion?
Yeah, because they sound very similar. Both are romantic crime stories.
Well, yet another title for us to include in our wish list for a future crime show.
Yep. But James Robinson had a kind of lull for me for a while. He was a writer, especially going back to Starman, that I was on the hook for no matter what he did. And then there were a few things more recently that I wasn't too keen on. But then Airboy kind of brought me back, but also some of the stuff he's doing for Marvel with Squadron Supreme and Scarlet Witch, I think are both pretty good series. So I'll definitely check this out. And this is a 5-issue miniseries. And we get 3 preview pages without dialogue, but Feister's art looks really good too.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this. Mm-hmm. Yet another interesting crime title from Dynamite.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I don't have anything after that until Drawn and Quarterly. Yeah,
same here. Although I guess I have something technically right before Drawn and Quarterly, although it's on the same page as Drawn and Quarterly. This is on 352, and in the Dover publications section, there is Little Tulip, written by Jerome Sharon with art by Francois Book. And this is another one of the, I guess, Franco-Belgian works that Dover is coming out with English editions of. So. And they've done books like this before, in fact, with the same creative team. So this is something. But also right above that, and I'm not going to get this, but I was wondering if you're familiar with this Chuck Dixon's Civil War adventure stories.
No, I'm not.
Okay, yeah. But we have 2 volumes coming out: Civil War Adventure Volume 1 and Civil War Adventure Volume 2.
Well, the Volume 1 is offered again, and Volume 2 is new.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm not the biggest Chuck Dixon fan, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to like Chuck Dixon until he started talking politics.
Politics, yeah. And it's really sad that something like that does affect my appreciation of some creators, but yeah, it does.
But I mean, Chuck Dixon's a solid superhero comics writer, so I liked his Batman and his Robin, so I'm not. And his Nightwing, so stuff for the Batman books was good. I still go back to it all the time. That hasn't been colored by anything. It's that I get the sense that more and more that his more recent stuff is colored by his politics.
Yeah. But then we get to the Drawn and Quarterly section on the second half of that page, and I think there are only 2 new books that are being solicited, and as they usually do in Drawn and Quarterly, they resolicit past works from the same 2 people. So there's a new Moomin coming out, Moomin and Family Life. But I think the big draw for me, and I would guess for you, would be the one right above that, Seth's Dominion.
Right. Now, what is this book? This exactly? Is this a book and a movie?
I don't think that the movie's included. Now, let me have you seen the movie documentary? Okay, no. It's great. It really is. Seth gave me access to it when I was doing that interview with him that was published earlier this year. But I don't see anywhere in the solicit that the movie is a part of this, which strikes me as a little interesting. I was about to say unusual, but maybe not unusual, because I think it would be good to make the movie available along with this, because the way they describe it, okay, this is the solicit. The film portrait of the acclaimed Canadian cartoonist Seth is presented here in an innovative double-spined hardcover that opens in 2 directions, one with a photo essay narrating his life, while the other offers a generous sampling of his art, comics and sketchbook pages, but also puppetry and New Yorker illustrations. Between these two halves lie Seth's Dominion, the National Film Board documentary of filmmaker Luc Chamberlain, a masterly portrait that mixes insightful biography with vivid animation in an artful fusion of filmmaking techniques that perfectly captures Seth's manifold creative universe. Now, earlier it says, in between these two halves lies Seth's Dominion. Now, do they mean that literally or figuratively?
Yeah, I'm assuming that the movie is in there, but it's not as explicit as I'd like it to be.
Exactly, because the list price on this is $29.95. So that would be about the price of a book like this of only 80 pages and a movie.
Yeah,
I would think.
Yep,
and it's hardcover.
Right. Now Seth is going to be at the Comics Crossroad or Cartoons Crossroad Columbus
in October,
event in October that I'm going to. So I'm really looking forward to that and possibly getting a chance to meet him. Now, I just to kind of be clear, I just looked this up on Amazon, and Amazon says it does contain the DVD.
Okay, good. I wish they had spelled that out much clearer in the solicit.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But yeah, we're really big fans of Seth, and if you don't know much about Seth, well, if you look on pages 352 and 353, you can see a lot of his books are resolicited. One of my favorites is George Sprott, and that's being resolicited on 352. But another one that I think is often overlooked, it's another one of his sketchbook books, The Great Northern Brotherhood of Canadian Cartoonists. I really enjoyed that one when it first came out.
Yeah, I like all of sketches, or excuse me, all of Seth's stuff. You can get Palookaville, the last two volumes of Palookaville as well, and of course, It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken, which is one of my favorite graphic novels of all time.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, I would say that if our listeners are not familiar with the work of Seth, but they've heard us mention him innumerable times on the podcast, then probably the best place to start is It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken. Yeah,
I suppose. But one of the things that I think works really well in It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken is if you're already kind of familiar, maybe not so much with Seth's work, but with Chester Brown and Joe Matt's work, since they figure into that book. And I feel like when you read that book, it kind of requires you to already be invested in their friendship before you get to It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken.
You think so?
Yeah. Partially because, well, I don't want to give away what kind of things go on with It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken, but you need a certain amount of trust with that book.
Right.
And part of that trust is built up, for me anyway, by the fact that you've got, Seth kind of bouncing ideas off of Chester Brown throughout the book. And that kind of gives it some veracity. Yeah.
I think that if people don't know the work of Chester Brown or Joe Matt, they can still appreciate and get everything they need to out of It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken. But you're right, an awareness of that friendship, and especially if you know some of the earlier comics of Chester Brown and Joe Matt, would help in understanding fully what's going on in It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken. And in fact, this friendship is very much a part of all three of their early works. With Seth and his Palookaville bits, with Matt in Peep Show, and then with Yummy Fur and Chester Brown. Yeah.
I kind of compare it to like a superhero universe. that maybe you can read their comics individually, but when you read them together, you get a much deeper experience, and I feel like more connection with the the creators who are doing their autobiographical work.
Yeah, and that was a bittersweet part of my interview with Seth, is asking him about his relationship with Chester Brown and Joe Matt, in that they've kind of drifted apart. I mean, they're still friends, especially Seth and Chester Brown, but they just don't interact as they used to for a number of reasons. One is where they're living now, and it's a natural process, right? I mean, we all grow, and we all change, and relationships grow and change a variety of different ways. But in me getting to know the work of Seth and of Matt and of Brown, they were all intertwined.
Right.
So seeing them apart it is a little sad.
Yeah, it sure is. Especially because kind of one of the last things we got from Joe Matt, the last issue of Peep Show has them, all having dinner together or whatever, and then his, most recent stuff in 10 years includes his Joe Matt's accounting of going away, leaving Toronto, and Seth's heartfelt speech about that. So anyway, maybe we'll see more of all of their stuff, hopefully in the future. I go next to 357 to Faber and Faber.
Okay, because I have something just right underneath that.
Yeah, and so on 357 under Faber and Faber is Love in Vain, a biography of the blues performer Robert Johnson from 1911 to 1938, by J.M. DuPont, and written by J.M. DuPont with art by Mezzo. And I'm trying to see, this is I can't remember if this is originally published or not, but anyway, this is, we've seen in several recent previews biographical works of famous musicians and performers, and so and other figures as well. So this fits in with that, and it is in a interesting format. It's in a kind of landscape format, which is
right.
8 inches by 11 inches.
Now, has Robert Johnson been represented in comics in the past? I would think he had, but nothing comes to mind.
Yeah, nothing comes to mind either in like biographically, or if he's appeared as a character somewhere, because it would seem like, since he did sell his soul to the devil after all, that he could come up in, Hellblazer or something.
Yeah. Or there would be someone who doesn't have the name Robert Johnson, but for all practical purposes is Robert Johnson, like the character we get in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Or the great Ralph Macchio movie Crossroads.
Oh, okay. I mean, that legend in and of itself is just ripe for any kind of storytelling.
Sure.
So,
but it looks like this is going to be a straight biography. It is not going to give us that side.
Okay. And then right underneath that is a book coming out soon from First Second, and this is Volume 9 in the Last Man series, The Rescue. This is written by Michael Sanaville and Bastien Vivet with art by Balak. And I really enjoy the Last Man series. So any time a new volume in the Last Man series comes out, it's an occasion to celebrate.
And this is the final volume.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now, 358 and 359 are Fantagraphics, and these are loaded.
Mm-hmm.
So, might as well just start at the beginning, I guess. The very first thing listed in the Fantagraphics section is Turn Loose Our Death Rays and Kill Them All, the complete works of Fletcher Hanks, edited by Paul Karasik. So this, I'm guessing, this collects the 2 volumes that Karasik had edited before, plus several newly discovered gems, it says.
Right. Plus, this is hardbound.
Yeah. So it's a bit pricey at $50, but if you want a solid block of just absolutely insane comics, then this is the place to go. But I love I Shall Destroy All Civilized Planets.
Right.
And I can't remember what the second volume's called, but I'll definitely be getting this.
Yes. Me too. And then right underneath that is another Cosplayers story. This is Cosplayers Christmas Special by Dash Shaw. And in fact, I just recently interviewed Dash Shaw for the podcast, and he talked about this Christmas issue coming out.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And he called it Christmas Special, not Xmas Special.
Okay.
Although Xmas is on the solicit.
Yeah, it looks like Christmas is on the cover. So
yeah. So, in fact, one of the things he pointed out in the interview was that he's not necessarily left the cosplayers world, Annie and Verti. He doesn't know what else he's going to do with them beyond this Christmas issue, but he may come back to them. He may not anytime soon. Who knows?
Well, it's good that he's keeping that open.
Right. So we have that. And, just recently you and I were talking about the latest issue, the summer issue of the anthology Smoke Signal, that does have a new or a non-collected cosplayer story in it.
Yep.
So if Shaw continues with these cosplayer stories, then we may have another volume of cosplayers in the not-too-distant future.
Yes.
And then right under that is issue number 4 of Gilbert Hernandez's Blubber. And what can we say about this that we haven't said already?
Yeah, and issue 3 just came out, right?
Yeah, I just got my copy the other day from Discount Comic Book Service. My shipment came, but I haven't read it yet.
No, I haven't. I know it's going to be in my next shipment, which is going to come in a couple weeks. But I think it's funny that this that the solicit refers to Blubber as Gilbert Hernandez's solo side project, because we're getting more Blubber, I think, from Gilbert Hernandez than anything else. I would go so far as to say that Blubber is his main project and everything else is a side project.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. He of course he does Love and Rockets,
right,
but he does a lot of other things on his own besides Love and Rockets. So he has multiple side projects going on in addition to Love and Rockets. But you're right, this seems to be the one that at least we get on a regular basis.
Which surprises me, because I honestly thought Blubber might have been number 1 was going to be just a kind of one-off thing of Gilbert working through some stuff that he had to work through, but it looks like he's continuing to have to work through stuff. And this one promises mummies, zombies, fawns, sex, which
that's basically
that's a given.
What Blubber is. Sex, yeah.
The snowman and the superheroine known as Red Tempest. So I am all over that.
Oh yeah. I guess Gilbert has a lot of stuff to work out.
Yeah. Yep. So, So I think that just reminds me, in keeping with our tradition, I think we should probably cover Blubber number 3 on an upcoming episode,
and 4 when it comes out. Yes.
Yeah. But I still have to get my copy of 3. And then do you have anything else on that page?
No.
And then on the next page, there's also a couple things at the top of the page. One of the things that kind of surprised me the most coming here is that Fantagraphics is going to be collecting George Metzger's Beyond Time and Again. Are you familiar with this?
Vaguely.
Yeah, it was a pretty significant underground comic in the late 60s. They identify 1967, and this is combines, it says, high fantasy with prescient views of science, climate change, and political authoritarianism, faithfully reproduced from the original art and collected for the very first time. I think that's interesting that it says collected for the very first time, because there was a collection. It may not have been a complete collection of Beyond Time and Again done in the 70s. And I mention that because that is one of the works that has a claim to being one of the first things to call itself a graphic novel. The original publication of Beyond Time and Again had it labeled as a graphic novel in, I don't know, early to mid 70s. I don't have the exact date in front of me.
Yeah, see, that's how I know this title, but nothing beyond that.
Yeah, and I'm familiar with Metzger's work because it appeared in a lot of, not just underground comics, but in fanzines like Graphic Story Magazine and the different offshoots of what Bill Spicer was doing at the time.
So yeah, that's something that I have marked that I'd like to get as well. And then under that is a new book by Julia Craffair, and I know I'm pronouncing her name incorrectly, and I think I mispronounce it in any number of incorrect ways every time I attempt to do so. But this one is called Laid Waste. It says it's a graphic novella about love and kindness among vermin in the putrid miasma, and I love the word miasma, of a plague-ravaged medieval city. Her delicate Gothic drawing style perfectly complements the period era of the book's setting, bringing the lyricism and romanticism of her prose to the fore. I absolutely love Craffair's art, and after I saw this solicit, I went to Study Group Comics to see if this was one of her web comics that she originally published on Study Group, because she's done a few things on Study Group and then come out with it in book form. And in fact, Black is the Color, another Fantagraphics book, which is resolicited here on the same page, started off as, or it was originally a Study Group webcomic. This one, though, is not. Laid Waste is not.
Okay. And she is also going to be at the Columbus, Ohio event in mid-October.
Yeah. I'd like to meet her.
I will try. I go to Jet City Comics next, so if you have anything, that's on 373.
I don't have anything before that, no.
Okay.
Oh, no, actually, I do. On 370. What do I have marked? Oh, on 370. Yeah, this is under Hermes Press, and I think I marked this just because as a kid I used to watch Dark Shadows. And then now we have the Hermes Dark Shadows Best of the Original Series. But in this month's previews, the big theme is television in comics, or television show, comics that are based on television shows. So when you see the symbol as seen on TV that I think we're all familiar with, that's the same symbol that they're using for this month's theme. And of course, all the Dark Shadow selections here have that tag. Yeah,
as well as
my favorite Martian.
Yeah, my favorite, the Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, and Alex Toth's Zorro.
Roy Rogers, The Collected Daily.
Yeah, Land of the Giants, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Anyway, lots of good stuff.
Right, but yeah, that was the only thing before, you said, what, 370...
Yeah, 373. Jet City. Now there's Jet City has a few graphic novels coming out this month, but the one I wanted to focus on was Cirque American Volume 1, Girl Over Paris, written by Bond, Gwenda, and Kate Leth, and art by Ming Doyle. And it's about Jules Maroney, a wire walker who has a high-profile accident, and so she is trying to kind of regain her reputation with a new act. So that looks great. I know Ming's been working on this series for a while, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I remember when the first issue was solicited a few months back, and I had highlighted that on a preview show, but I didn't pick it up yet, though.
Mm.
I haven't read one issue of this series yet.
Yeah, I'm gonna get it in its collected form like this.
Yeah, be worth checking out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything until 385.
Okay, go ahead.
And that is Comet Bus number 57 by, Errant Comet Bus. But I'm not familiar with this zine that he puts out, but I guess they're soliciting this here, and it's under the Last Gasp section, because this seems to be, I guess, a comics-centric issue. It says the comic scene is thriving in New York, and the comics play an oversized role in the city's myth. But what the hell is it all about? In this special issue of Comet Bus, we go door to door, uptown to downtown, looking at cartoonists from an outsider perspective and asking the questions that other mags are either too informed or too polite to pose. So we visit artists like Gary Panter, Julia Wirtz, Ben Catcher, Adrian Tomini, and Gabrielle Bell, but also comic scholars, publishers, bookkeepers, shopkeepers, and librarians. So, featuring beautiful illustrations by Nate Powell.
Yeah, and an interview with Al Jaffe, who's
right.
I think 95 right now. So
yeah,
that's definitely worth checking out.
Mm-hmm. And where do you go next?
391.
Okay. Let me see. I think one or two things. No, 391.
Okay, so
New York Review Comics.
Yeah, New York Review Comics has "Pretending Is Lying" by Dominique Goblet, and I guess Sophie Yanow. I'm probably the translator, and as it says, "Pretending Is Lying" is a memoir unlike any other, and this is Goblet's first book to appear in English. And I got to see some pages from this. She was a guest at ICAF this year, and this is literally a book that's like no other. In many ways, it's a beautiful, beautiful book, and so I'm really excited that this is coming out in English.
Mm-hmm.
And she was there, I think, as a part of a promotion from New York Review Comics too. So we were made aware that this was coming.
Well, if this is something that we don't discuss on our weekly show, then maybe Edward and I can cover it in our Eurocomic series.
Yeah, you definitely should.
Mm-hmm. And if you turn the page, 392, we get into the Oni Press section. And this seems interesting. Motro, is that how you pronounce it?
That's what I'm going with.
Yeah. Motro #1, that's Motro #1. This is by Ulysses Fariñas. He's the writer and artist. A reclusive young boy with superhuman strength follows a prophecy from his dead father on a mission to save people, but when he finds the area, villagers are less than thrilled by his noble intentions, and he faces adversaries both human and magical mechanical. What will it take to fulfill his destiny? Can his miniature talking motorcycle help? It's that last sentence, though, that really got my attention.
Yeah, I like Andrew McLean from Headloppers, a blurb. It's like King Conan's fever dream, except King Conan is also Mad Max. So that's I like Fariñas's work on Judge Dredd. So that's where I was first exposed to his work. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. So if he has a miniature talking motorcycle, I guess this would be something akin to, what was that TV show, Knight Rider?
Yeah.
Or My Mother the Car.
Right. I was was thinking more of like Rogue Trooper, the 2000 AD series, where he has a talking helmet, gun, and backpack.
So, do you have anything else in Oni?
No.
Okay, so where do you go next?
400.
Ah, okay. Probably the same place that I go. Trish Trash?
Yeah, which there is our theme, right, of roller derby.
Mm-hmm.
So Trish Trash, Roller Girl from Mars, Volume 1 by Jessica Abel.
Yeah. Now, when Wolverton and I had Jessica on the show last year, we were talking with her about that book she had about radio. She, during that interview, discussed Trish Trash, which was a series that was being published in French, but not in English. And she was saying that it will be in English at some point, but I guess now we're at that point. And it's an interesting combination. And she was talking with us about the premise of this series. In that, she's married to Matt Madden, and apparently, if I remember correctly, they were having a conversation about bringing disparate things together to create a coherent storyline, and roller derby and Mars narrative seem to be two things that you wouldn't put together, but yet she met the challenge, and now we have this series, Trish Trash.
Great. Yeah, it looks great, and it's going to be a trilogy.
Yeah, and I see on Amazon that Volume 2 is already up and listed for some time in early 2017.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yep. And since we're on page 400, we should also mention PS Art Books, because one of our avid listeners, Rainer Koschnick, likes those volumes, and they're wonderful. And he every now and again mentions that we tend to overlook those, but yeah. We got some more of those. Pre-Code Classics, Weird Adventure Thrillers, Volume 1 is being solicited. In fact, that's a Spotlight title.
Yep. I don't have anything till 414, so if you have anything before then, go ahead.
Okay. On page 403 in Self-Made Hero section, in fact, this is the only book solicited under Self-Made Hero, is the second in what I think is going to be a trilogy from Rob Davis, and this is The Can Opener's Daughter. Now, a while back, you and I discussed The Motherless Oven by Rob Davis, and so this is the next book in that series. So Vera Pike, who was mentioned in The Motherless Oven, now has a book about her, The Can Opener's Daughter.
That's interesting because the solicit does not say anything about The Motherless Oven.
It doesn't, which had me wondering. The covers look so similar.
Right.
And I knew it was the same artist, so I went, probably Amazon, to find out what they had on that. And they specifically mentioned The Motherless Oven and the links between the two. Now, why that's not mentioned here in this solicit is beyond me, because many of the times the information that you'll see on Amazon is word for word the same things that you'll see in the solicit in the Previews catalog.
Oh, well.
But this is at least the second case this month where we've seen that's not the case.
Yep. Okay. Do you have anything else before 414?
No.
Okay. So this is in the Titan section. And this is, last month Titan debuted its Hardcase Crime line of comics, and now they have another line involving a popular property, Hammer Comics, based on the Hammer Studios movies, and their first book in that series is going to be The Mummy, written by Peter Milligan and drawn by Ronaldson Freer. Are you familiar with or a fan of the Hammer films?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
Either.
I love the Hammer films. I watch them voraciously, and I've seen most of the Hammer horror films. And
so for you, Hammer Time is something good.
Yeah, that is. Well, in every iteration, it is. But I'm curious to see the comics line, because this could. Is this going to move? Is this going to utilize the elements of Hammer's Mummy film, which starred Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, or is it just going to be in the tradition of the Mummy, of the Universal horror story and so on? And so I'm kind of curious. I'm more curious than excited, I think, about the Hammer Comics line, because the Hammer movies were, most of them were Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, and so on, the kind of classic Universal horror characters, but with a more kind of modern, bloody, and sexy twist to them. So if the Hammer comics are going to keep within that, even the continuity of those movies, or are they just going to be, more Dracula, Frankenstein, and Mummy comics? We'll see.
So you're interested in this, but you're not near as optimistic about it as you were last month with the hard case crime titles.
Right. Because I don't necessarily need to read another mummy story, but if it were a follow up to the Hammer Studios Mummy film, then I would be all over it.
Okay. Well, I go next to Valiant. Do you have anything before that or something else in tight?
I am done with
completely.
Yes. So whatever you got next, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, on 436 in the Valiant section, this is Faith issue number 5. Now, a couple weeks back, you and I discussed the first issue of Faith. On 437, the second volume of Faith, which is the first 4 issues of this new ongoing series, is being solicited, California Scheming. But what I find even more interesting is on that previous page, 436, issue number 5 of Faith, because Faith meets Hillary Clinton, at least on the cover. And so this is the Election 2016 special. And I was curious when I saw that if Valiant was doing anything with Donald Trump in any way whatsoever, and I could not discern anything. And although that doesn't surprise me, I just thought it worth noting. And, you have in a character like Faith someone that it just makes sense that she's linked to Hillary Clinton in some way.
Yeah, and it looks like the Faith in her private identity or whatever, as a blogger and a journalist, is going to come into contact with Hillary Clinton. So that's great. I think this is interesting. So this will be coming out around election time,
right?
November 2nd. So a week before election time, and I wonder if this is also meant to be a kind of callback to what Marvel did with President Obama appearing on the Spider-Man cover.
Yeah.
And considering how my local comic shop responded to that comic with nothing but disdain, I'm really curious. I mean, they don't get Valiant Comics anyway. I'm sure they only get DC and Marvel. And I haven't shopped there. I have not shopped there since I encountered one of the employees' response to the President Obama Spider-Man cover while I was shopping.
What was the response?
It was terrible. I'm just going to say that. And
did it include certain language that rather not repeat?
Bad language. And so
wow.
I said, that's it. I'm not shopping there anymore. And that was that.
Wow. Well, on a more upbeat note, I think the last things I have to highlight in the comics section, at least, are both in the VIZ Media section. On page 451, we have the first volume in the next storyline of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And the third storyline is Stardust Crusaders.
Yep.
But for me, even more exciting is page 455, and this is Teo Matsumoto's Sunny, Volume 6. And this is the final book in this Sunny series. And I know this is something that Shay and I have been looking forward to for some time because, since we started the manga series a little over a year ago, we've said that once they finish the Sunny series, then that's something that we'll definitely discuss. So we've been looking forward to this and wondering when they will wrap it up. Well, pretty darn soon we're going to get Volume 6 of Sunny.
Yeah, and 6 volumes is a pretty manageable manga series.
It is. So I'm definitely looking forward to this. Now, the only other thing I think I wanted to mention in the comics section is on 462, and this is something I'm actually surprised that you didn't highlight. This is Grimm Fairy Tales Steampunk Alice in Wonderland.
I just blow right past Zenoscope, so it didn't even occur to me. Okay. Yeah, well, thanks for letting me know about that.
Sure, my friend. That's why I'm here.
Okay.
And then in the book section, on page 470, we have Brian Cremens's Captain Marvel and the Art of Nostalgia coming out from University Press of Mississippi, even though they don't list that it's a University Press of Mississippi book. But
I completely missed that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that book. I've talked to Brian about it a few times. And I'm also looking forward. Brian's going to be in Columbus, so I like hanging out with him.
Yeah, I've never met him.
Yeah, he's if he's listening to the show, super nice guy. and
well, Brian, I look forward to meeting you.
And so again, I've been talking to him about this for a while now. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm hoping when it comes out that we could possibly have him on the show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that'd be great. In fact, that would be the second Captain Marvel book in a row where we would have the author on for an interview.
Along with Bill Shelley? Is that,
right.
Yeah. Yeah, and then just on the next page, or on the next column, is from University of Mississippi Press also, the Peter Bagg Conversations collection.
Right, and this is in softcover. Now, I have a hardcover edition of that because I'm a contributor, but I can't remember if the softcover was released at the same time as the hardcover, or now the softcover is just being released, which has been a year, so that would make sense. But, also on that page is the Jewish graphic novel Critical Approaches, and this is edited by Samantha Baskin and Randon Omer Sherman. This came out a number of years ago, and I know that I got a hard copy when it first came out, and so I thought, well, maybe they're just now releasing a softcover, but even that seemed to have already been out, so I looked that up, and actually the softcover came out in, I think, 2010, so this is, I guess, a resolicit for some reason.
Yeah, I was curious about that because I know I cited that book in something I wrote recently, and so I was like, wait a minute, this can't be a new edition.
No, it's not. But for whatever reason, I can't remember the publisher. It's a university press, but they just saw fit to solicit it this month.
It's fine. Yeah, and I think Mississippi does pretty well with putting stuff in previews. So maybe other presses are going to following. University presses are following suit.
Mm-hmm. And there you go, our selections, recommendations, and highlights for the month of September in the Previews catalog.
Yes, and if we hurry through the end stuff, we'll get this in under 2 hours.
Hey, there you go. They do have a lot of great stuff that is solicited here, and the vast majority you can find for extremely deep discounts at the website of our sponsor, which is Discount Comic Book Service. Be sure to go to dcbservice.com. You'll find great specials for the month of September, but actually any month you visit their website, you'll find great specials. And after you do get your comics there, get in touch with us and let us know what you think about our highlights from the September Previews catalog. If you go to the website, comicsalternative.com, you'll find that you can leave us a voice message through the wonders of SpeakPipe, which is really easy to use. Or you can call us the old-fashioned way. Our phone number is 415-3-COMICS. That's 415-326-6427.
That's right. Or you can get a hold of us by email. We are 2guys@comicsalternative.com. Or you can get a hold of us individually. I'm Andy at comicsalternative.com.
And I'm Derek at comicsalternative.com.
And we have our Twitter feed where we announce new content to the podcast and updates to the blog. Check out the Twitter feed at the number 2 guys with PhDs.
That's right, but you can also find us on Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram, Google+, Goodreads, Pinterest, and YouTube. You can subscribe to the podcast through iTunes. You can stream us on Stitcher. You can find us on TuneIn. You can listen to the podcast via Spotify, and if you're an Android user, Google Play Music. But you can find every single one of our podcast episodes, as well as the reviews and comics-related commentary that we post on our blog by going to the website comicsalternative.com.
So all the ways to get a hold of us, find out what we're doing, and let us know how we're doing.
And we do like to hear from you, so definitely get in touch. Until next week, I'm Derek.
And I'm Andy. See ya.